We're back for another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose, and we welcome back Ben Dunn as we're going to pick apart the NBA draft. And Dunny, you're rocking the colours, mate. This is an exciting time of year for basketball fans.
100%. It probably outside of maybe the playoffs is my favorite time of year because I just love the chaos that comes along with the draft and free agency and all that sort of stuff. So bring it on.
Well, mate, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, because we went to 7 games, we've barely had a moment to take breath and take stock. I think Oklahoma's got 46 public holidays announced in their town, one for every player and coach and anyone else that's
And
been
one
near the
for every
team.
person that turned up to the championship parade as well. Some of those pictures look pretty ordinary.
Exactly right. The mayor's behind them. I don't know if many others are, but yeah, as I said, like not a lot of time. Quite often, when the series might wrap up a little quicker, we might have a couple of weeks, but it was sort of 5 days, and we're back into things. Look, I don't think it was any surprises when we go from the top in terms of who went at number one.
No, not at all. It's exactly what we thought. He's an all-star level talent, Cooper Flag, before he even takes the court. He's been sort of ordained by the greats after training with sort of Team USA last summer. They've already all said he's legit and he's ready to go. The only thing, and we sort of touched on it before we started filming, it doesn't make a whole heap of sense in the Dallas fit as it is at the moment, just the way their roster's constructed. So they've probably got some moves to make, but at the moment he plays the same position as about 70% of their roster. So what are they going to do to sort of fill those gaps around him? Kyrie's obviously going to be coming back from a pretty severe injury. Klay Thompson's not what he once was. So he can't sort of take over those ball handling duties like he used to do back in the day. And I just don't think that their bench is as deep as it needs to be. But look, they had to take him after trading away a franchise level talent in Luka. They need Cooper, and he's going to be great there. I'm already trying to figure out how I buy his first shoe, so I'm ready to go.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, there was all that talk about Luka getting traded out, and it still doesn't quite make a full picture. But once the lottery, and they only had a slim chance, once the lottery fell their way, and Flag's being talked about as a not quite once in a generation player, but there's a huge expectation that he's going to be when we look through the recent if I go back the last 7 or 8 years, maybe even all the way back to since Ben Simmons. Realistically, Wemby's the only other one that there's probably been this much hype about in terms of those number one picks off the top of my head, or maybe
Yeah.
Zion.
Zion, yeah, that was the only other one that I was really going to say. Yeah, probably Zion, but because he had so much hype coming out of high school and then into college, did really well in there. And initially, like obviously Barrett was supposed to go really good, so the Zion sort of climbed the ranks a little bit there. But I mean, for the past 3 years, it's been all Cooper Flag and waiting for this draft, and he certainly hasn't disappointed. If anything, he was better in college than we thought he was going to be. He was dominant on both ends, showed a lot of playmaking and stuff. So look, maybe they turn him into the point forward, and they just sort of coast on that until Kyrie's back. But look, the world's his oyster. He could be absolutely anything. He's great size, great ability, can shoot. His 3-point shot improved heaps during college as well. Apparently, he's looking even better in all his workouts. So, look, I'm really excited to see him in an NBA system and more open court, a little bit more spacing, better players around him. I think it's going to be a good year for Dallas.
It certainly is, and it continues that strong record as well. And we'll talk on Duke in a moment more broadly, but that's their fourth first pick in 15 years, I think, with Kyrie being the one in 2011, obviously Paolo Banchero, and then Zion as well. So there's some pretty good pedigree of number one picks coming out in the last 15 years out of Duke.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching the draft, there was a stat they'd become the number one school with the most first round draft picks after their whole starting five getting drafted. So they've overtaken Kentucky now. So not bad company to be part of. So yeah, they've pretty much become a pipeline since they sort of adopted the ethos of taking the one and done style players, which they'd never really done up until sort of maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But yeah, they've done very, very well with developing these players.
Yeah, they certainly have 3 in the top 10, which is not pretty surprising considering the team they had, but it's still it's an impressive stat, especially when you have a look at the fact that we're now seeing some of these other international players that aren't necessarily playing as much college ball starting to get up into that mix. But Let's talk in terms of some of the players who might have been a little more surprising where they ended up. And the first one of those that I want to talk about, and I think, we were talking about Utah and their ownership, and obviously the alignment of the fact that they've got owners that also own the Utah Mammoth as they now are. They've just updated their name for the NHL. But Ace Bailey, I think at number 5, a steal essentially.
Yeah, essentially, and he's probably one of those ones. I mean, Paul George called him out a week ago, saying that he's not that good yet. He probably shouldn't be declining workouts, and he needs to do what he can to get into the league before he starts making demands. Um, and look, the reason that he slide appears to have been his attitude and his reluctance to do workouts for teams. He just assumed that he was a top three talent and that that's where they were going to take him. So yeah, I think the owners and franchises sort of gave him a bit of a not today champ, and tried to adjust that attitude for him. Whether that works or not, I guess we'll see. But look, I think Utah's probably a really good spot for him. I know Utah now are looking to make some moves. They're going to sort of move Colin Sexton on it, sort of looking. They've got a decent sort of squad around him already. With Markkinen and players like that. So look, we'll see how he goes. But yeah, he's a terrific player. He's got great size, 6'7.5", 7 foot wingspan. Like he's so versatile and can shoot the ball. Yeah, just seems like his attitude was the thing that got him to drop.
Yeah, it's interesting because he sort of came out and he sort of said there was a heap of teams he didn't want to go to. It seemed like he only wanted to go to one of the big cities. And you understand there's probably a bit more money from deals and other things like the third party external stuff if you're in those cities. But I love the attitude of Ryan Smith, who we were talking about again earlier in that ownership piece, in that he's just like, Utah is the hidden gem. We're going to show him why he wants to be here, why he can walk down the street, why he can do all these things that he couldn't do in those other cities. And we want to see him become the face of this franchise for the next 10 plus years, which I love that he's almost taken as a challenge. And again, if you look at the backstory of Ryan Smith, how proud he is about his town, or his city, I should say, in Salt Lake City, that he's very much an advocate for it. And he's like, well, I'll just show him, and he'll fall in love with the place like everyone else has. And I'm like, I love that he's just like, well, I will just overturn that rather than, you see some of these teams that draft them, and then they, someone who says they might not have wanted to go there, and then they focus on that whole element of, oh, well, now we've got to, absolutely bow down to him. He's like, well, no, I'll just show him that this town's where he needs to be.
Yeah, I think it's a great attitude as well. And look, he's certainly someone that's got the connections there to be able to sort of pave the way for a few of those deals that you were talking about. And I think that's less of an issue in today's market as well. Like we're so internet driven, particularly since the COVID days, like everything's online, everything's virtual. So he's still going to have the chance to make a lot of off-court money. But he's got to fix that attitude and he's got to make sure he performs on the court first. Otherwise, he'll be out of the league. So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, look, if he can turn into the player that we think he can, and Brian can sell him on how great Utah is, then yeah, they've definitely got sort of a franchise level player there that can be there for quite a number of years and play out a great career.
Yeah, well, it certainly looks like it's going to be the case. We'll see how that all shapes. Obviously, we know the twists and turns of NBA contracts and careers can be broad and wide ranging. But while we're talking sliders, let's transition into the Aussies. And let's just say that it was great, first of all, to see 4 Australians go in the back of the second round. But there was probably some surprises, especially in terms of the order that they fell.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, not to take anything away from Rocco, he's got the size. He's shown the ability to work pretty hard. Like all he's done is focus on getting to the NBA. Like he's come out of school early. He's done the Center of Excellence stuff. NBL One East represent. Um, he's been over like working. He's been in the bullet system. He's been trying really hard. The knock on him and the reason that he probably didn't go first round is just his size. At 7'3", he's still got a really sort of slight frame, but I think going to Minnesota is probably arguably the best spot for him. His best or most likely outcome is to become sort of a Rudy clone. I don't think he's ever going to be a dominant sort of Anthony Davis type who's got the ball in his hands and scoring 30, 40 points a game. I think his best outcome is to get in there, clean up the misses, and just be a menace on defense. And if he can learn from Rudy over the next couple of years, then and sort of really take that in, then he can have a really long career in the NBA as well. He's certainly got the size to be that sort of disruptor, but he did really well. But yeah, in terms of slides, Tyrese Proctor out of Duke was definitely expected to be the highest ranked Aussie in the draft. Lots of stuff like Jonathan Gavoni. He'd sort of said that there was still a chance that he could be going in the late first round. So for him to sort of fall all the way to the late 40s was definitely quite surprising. And I think he's one of those players that sort of his versatility has hurt him here. The fact that he doesn't really have a set position, like he's not necessarily a point guard, he's not necessarily a shooting guard. He can just play both those positions really well. I think that's hurt him. Although in the NBA, combo guards are prized for most teams. Like you want someone that you can swing the ball to. You don't need a primary playmaker all the time. He's got good size at 6'6", but I think he's still got a small frame. I think they said, and I can't do the maths quickly off the top of my head, but he's still only 183 pounds, which is
5 kilos.
yeah, which is quite light for 6'6". So he needs to add some size, and then hopefully that'll get him a bit more explosivity as well, and allow him to sort of get to the basket and take that contact. So I think if he can add a bit of size and work on his explosiveness, then yeah, he's going to be one of the steals of the draft as well.
I think the other two Aussies that got taken, Lockie Olbrich, he'll end up at the Chicago Bulls with Josh Giddey coming via the Lakers. But mate, he's 6'10", he's 240, he's got that frame. It's been probably hardened up a little bit more against some men playing here in Australia and New Zealand. Look, he can space the floor pretty well. He's efficient as a rebounder and a big body defender. I think he's going to be a good pickup. But the one for me, Alex Tui going to the Golden State Warriors. We've seen what he could do in the NBL. He is the leap that he took into last season's NBL. He's played for Australia a number of times now. Like I think he made his debut for Australia 4 years ago. This is a guy. He's long. He's multi-positional forward, defensive playmaking too. And he's got energy. He's just a spark. So I think in a really strong environment like the Golden State Warriors, he's going to be an interesting one. And I think he's probably, a lot of people are expecting him to go in the 40s as opposed to the 50s.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the note that I had for him is that like his versatility sliding into that Warriors lineup. Man, it's if he works hard in this preseason and he actually gets a shot, he can be a real contributor in that offense. Like working off Steph, he can set screens and he can get to the basket real quick. His ability to sort of move from 3-point line to 3-point line, sort of swing through the key there. Like like you said, he's shown it in the NBL. He can do it really, really well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Yeah, well, I think positive signs for all those Aussies. They've all landed in spots when you have a look at them on the surface that look like they should be reasonably good fits for them and their opportunities as they present going forward. But I guess the big question when people talk about the draft, Dunny, is who won, who lost, who's your biggest winner in this?
Look, I think in terms of steals, Miami Heat, we did pretty well. We got Kasparas Yakachounis. I just had to write his name down to make sure I said it properly. But he was predicted in early like mock drafts and things like that, big boards, to be going in the top 5. And the fact that the Heat got him at the 20 is incredible. I know Bill Simmons has lost his mind about it. He was like saying, of course this has happened. Like the Heat always managed to do this. This is ridiculous. Someone should have picked him up. He's not a pick 20 talent. He should have been top 10. So I am absolutely chomping at the bit to see him out there. The knock on Yakachounis was his turnovers. So he had nearly as many turnovers as he had assists. But when you look at his college highlights, it's because he was playing too fast and maybe some of his teammates around him weren't at his level. So it'll be interesting to see him in the NBA systems where players are just as good as him and are moving just as quick as him. So I'm very excited to see him. The other big drop was Rasheer Fleming. He was predicted to go around the 17, and the Suns got him at 31. So that's another big steal. But to me, probably, I think you touched on Brooklyn before we started recording. They did pretty well, but to me, I think the Hornets. They got Con Kneppel out of Duke at the 4th pick. He's an incredible size for his position, 6'7". I think he's about 210, so he's again a bigger body. Terrific shooter throughout the NCAA tournament. I think he shot 53%, something around there from 3, like just a knockdown shooter. They got Ryan Kalkbrenner, who was the 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. Like to get him in the 40s, I think he was maybe 40, something like that. He was around there. Like, I mean, they're so happy with their draft of the Hornets. They've already traded Mark Williams, who was their starting center for last year. So I think they've done really well. They also got another Duke player in Zion James. So that was that, as we were talking about before, the whole starting 5 of Duke has been drafted. So it's pretty incredible. But yeah, to me, it's the Hornets. What about you?
Yeah, I have to lean the Hornets. I think Utah did well. Obviously, we talked about, picking up Ace Bailey. I think that's a huge upside. The team that was a little bit puzzling for me were New Orleans. They had 2 picks in the first 13, and they took Jeremiah Fears. He's pretty polarizing, to be fair. You know, like you're expecting him to be a primary creator, and I'm just not sure how he doesn't shoot it well from three, and but wants to be ball dominant, fits in next to Zion, right? So it'd be interesting. We might get to have a look at him actually when they come down under at the start of the year. Who knows? But yeah, I think that was probably one of the more peculiar picks. I was much happier, I guess, with Derek Queen. Few athletic concerns about him though, like that might impact them on the defensive end, and it's probably somewhere where they want some more support. But he's probably got some of the best hands in the draft when you look back at what he's done. So I think those two kind of don't quite neutralize each other out. But I'm puzzled as to what they're trying to do. I was really looking for them to put some key pieces with two, you know, either side of the, inside the top 10 and just outside the top 10 picks. Really put some pieces together around Zion to set him up for success.
Yeah, you're right. And I thought when they traded CJ the other day, I was like, well, they've obviously got a good plan for the draft. They've targeted someone that's going to come in as a scorer or as a primary ball handler. And yeah, you're right. I don't know that they've necessarily got the right fit there when you see someone like a Yakachunas who's fallen to 20. So look, I'll take it. I'm happy to see how we get that point guard that Miami Heat needed. And here we go from there. But I still don't think that a lot of teams are actually set on their rosters now. I think this is going to be quite an active free agent period now after this draft. A lot of teams have drafted for versatility. There's lots of sort of 3 and D guys in there. So when you got those rookie contracts and you've got some quality players, because it was arguably a pretty deep draft. So I think you're going to see some value in those draft picks and possibly see a lot more movement still to come because there are still some players out there who were a little bit unsure if they're going to be on their roster come, what is it, 24th of October when the season kicks off.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. We saw some people, obviously, the depth of the draft. We saw some teams trading out, moving up 10 spots on one of the trades and giving away, unprotected draft picks and different things, which was quite aggressive. Unprotected first round draft picks for next year for some teams that aren't, likely to go really deep into the season. So they could be quite high. So that really, when you start to see those sorts of trades, I know the NBA is famed for and the joke's always that, they'll happily trade a 2037 first round draft pick. But, it's famed for those longer term ones, but to be doing next year when you're still in a building era, as are those options that you have, there's some aggressive moves, which I think that sums up how deep and how much faith a lot of these teams had in this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're starting to see a few more sort of third, fourth year players in this draft as well, which we haven't seen for a couple of years. It's been a lot of one and done style players and a lot more, I guess, sort of risk in that. But you saw some players like Condon at Florida, another Aussie who was potentially going to be in the draft, who've pulled out and gone back to college for next year. So yeah, there was a lot of depth, a lot of experienced, talented players out there who probably can contribute. So I think that that's one of the things that's helped with the NIL is that like players aren't necessarily incentivized to jump straight away, so they're getting a little bit more development, and hopefully this is going to be better for the NBA and for the college system, and we start to see sort of more talent developed before they make the jump to the league.
Yeah, well, that's the one that I was touching on before was that the Pelicans one they traded up for Queen.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, again, I think a big win for Atlanta coming out of that draft by picking up that unprotected for next year. So it is interesting, though, as you say, the options of how it's changing. And, we're even seeing some players opt. We've obviously got the Next Star system here in Australia. There's some others that are, if they think they're not going to quite go where they want to go, that they'll go another year or two. We saw some players, in their early 20s drafted in this draft class. I think the eldest 22 or 23. So it's certainly different avenues now in the world that we live in because they can afford to, stick out at college for another year or two or go and pick up a contract somewhere else and develop, especially if you're one of those, that hasn't quite grown into your body and physically got used to it. You can get some runs on the board and, we've seen some really good success. We've seen some top 2 and 3 draft picks come out of that NBL Next Star system, which is always good to watch what comes there next as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, it's all sort of great for the league and great for the basketball worldwide. Like the fact that then here in the NBL, we can get to see some quality players who are probably on the cusp of being NBA level talents. But yeah, we get to sort of see them week to week here in the NBL and watch them develop. And then that gives us something to buy into and and watch when they do make it to the NBA. So it is good, and look, not all of them hit, but for the most part, the ones that have come here have done pretty well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. See who comes here now, as maybe rather than taking a two-way deal, we might get some other ones that come over here, and yeah, it's exciting times.
It certainly is, and it leads us into then, obviously player options and free agency, and there's some big names on the table at the moment too. When we have a look at the NBA, obviously LeBron James, the biggest of names, set to take up. I think it's a $53 million, if my maths is right, player option. And then you've got some of these others that look like they're going to become available. The James Hardens and Naz Reeds. There's going to be some interesting moves as we go forward over the next little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and even sort of some disgruntled players that may have been sort of posturing behind the scenes to get traded. We just sort of one of them with Kevin Durant going to the Rockets, and some of the things he's been saying about the Suns since he left. And look, KD has shown that he's probably not the most professional in that sort of aspect. He's good while he's in there, but he certainly will spill the tea once he's left. And the fact that like he called out their draft, the fact that they've drafted and traded for shooting guards, and he's like, that's why I left. He goes, and Book's going to be the next one too, is what he tweeted. So it'll be interesting to sort of see what happens with the Suns. But yeah, I think the player options, particularly in the way that the salary cap's constituted at the moment, they're crazy not to take it up. With that second tier hard cap coming in now, a lot of teams, and we're seeing it with Boston, like they've obviously assumed now that with no Tatum for next year, that they're sort of more in a rebuild. They've gotten rid of Drew, they've gotten rid of Porzingis. There's going to be a lot of teams out there who aren't able to spend as much as they probably have in previous years, and therefore I think it's more likely that players like LeBron are going to pick up their player options, because I think the Spurs are probably one of the only ones that are below the hard cap at the moment, or below that sort of first tier, and can actually sort of splash any cash. So yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what happens with all this free agency. We might see some sign and trades, which will then change the league and um, be exciting for October.
Yeah, it certainly will. It could be a very different looking league at that point. And the other name that is reportedly, on the move is, of course, the Greek freak Giannis. That could be a big move. You've already talked about Kristaps on the move. If he's fit and healthy, I think that's a great pickup. But you know, Giannis moving from the Bucks potentially, they're going to need to get some key pieces. And I think at the moment, well, the Warriors, the rumor is that they're in the box seat to lead that. But I mean, there'll be plenty of other people throwing their hat in the ring.
Yeah, I've seen again Boston in there as well. Jalen Brown, Giannis almost straight up. Their salaries pretty much match. Um, but yeah, it's looking very, very likely. If there's a way that New York could put something together, I think Jalen Brunson and Giannis could be a pretty scary proposition for a lot of teams, particularly in the East, which isn't necessarily as strong as the West. I don't think I'd really see Giannis going West, because I think there's a lot of bigger bodies out there that he wouldn't want to play every other night. So staying in the East is probably better for him at his age. But yeah, look, I think it's unlikely that it will be in Milwaukee at the start of the season, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what it comes with. We know that the NBA season is going to be missing some big names at the start of it, certainly on that Eastern Conference side. Halliburton, Jason Tatum, Damian Lillard, all out of action. So there'll be teams looking to make moves so that they can make impact. But there'll be lots of storylines that continue to develop. But until we can get some more firm answers on some of these, Ben, a big thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to having you back and having our fans and followers back next time we talk some basketball.
Absolutely, mate. Look forward to it.